I left that retreat and I started working with a little nun, a world-famous nun. Her name's Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta. She taught me how to love again, how to love myself and how to love others. Because I think up to that point I couldn't love. For 27 years I was dead. All I was interested in was the unholy trinity. Me, myself and I. All I was interested in was making money my God. But now God is my God. And He's the best boss I have ever met in my life. His wages are lousy, but His pension plan is out of this world. And for any of you who are struggling in your lives, any of you who don't see meaning in your lives, know that Jesus is just one prayer away. All we have to do is ask Him into our lives, and He wants to come in power and He wants to come in victory, because He created us for a reason, and we're not mistakes. We're created for a reason because we're His children, and we're beautiful children who belong to Him. And so when we turn our lives to Jesus, He enwraps us in that incredible grace, in that incredible wonder, which is His plan for our lives. And the more I've learned to live that plan, and the more I've learned to surrender my ideas and what I want, and the more I've let Jesus take over in my life, the happier and the more fulfilled I've come. And the greatest gift He's given me is being able to love. Because before I couldn't love. I couldn't love myself and I couldn't love anyone else. And other people we used to help were kids who were dying. We used to take them to the Lord. One little boy was called Stephen. He had cancer of the spinal cord. I used to take him in my arms, and before he had one of these terrible spasms, I used to pucker his lips so he could kiss me on the side of the face. He taught me more about love than I could ever teach him. But the person who I was really visiting when I was visiting them homeless guys was a part of my own wounded heart, because I know what it's like not to have a home. And when I was visiting Winifred, I was visiting another part of my own wounded heart, because I know what it's like to be in prison. And when I was holding Stephen in my arms, I was holding a part of my heart in my arms, because I know what it's like to be 10 and have no one love you. I think it's through giving that we receive. And the more I've learned to give, the more I've received. And that gift in giving is being completely and utterly healed inside, renewed inside and redeemed inside. And all I can say to you is I heard why Mother Teresa came out with the catchphrase, give until it hurts. She told me the story of where she learned what it was to give until it hurts. She said she was in her convent in Calcutta, and this guy came round to the convent and he said about a Hindu family that was starving. So she immediately put this bowl of rice that her and the other sisters were about to eat and went round to this Hindu family. She said it was like looking at 5 human skeletons, a mother and her 4 children. She placed the rice on the table, and immediately the mother took out an empty bowl, put half the rice in it and went out the door. When she came back in, the rice was gone. Mother Teresa said, where did you go with all that rice? She said, my Muslim neighbour was also starving. Mother Teresa said to me she began to cry, because for the first time in her life, she realised what it was to give until it hurt. That Hindu mother had fed her neighbour before even feeding herself and her own starving children. A friend of mine and Mother Teresa's, when he was 16, he was asked to work with some mountain people up in the American mountains, and they were very poor. And this guy he was helping, he had no running water, no electricity, and very little food. And he was helping him build a porch. He said why he wanted a porch, I'll never know. But he worked with him for 2 weeks. And over these 2 weeks, this 16-year-old had never met anyone who was so happy. And he said to him at the end of the 2 weeks, why are you so happy? I'm 16 and I've got more than you, and you never stop smiling. And this guy looked at him with a big grin on his face and he said, that's because I know Jesus. And the 16-year-old said, well, I know Jesus a bit. I go to mass occasionally, I pray a bit. And the man shook his head. He said, no, you don't know Jesus. Because if you knew Jesus, you'd be as happy as me. You might know about Jesus, but you don't know him personally. Well, that night, this 16-year-old goes home, and he says, I don't want to know about you, Jesus. I want to know you personally. And he was filled with such love that he spent most of the night crying. And in the morning he knew he was going to give the rest of his life to Jesus. And he came to this understanding that God was calling him to be a priest. And he became quite a famous priest. His name's Father Bernard Murphy. He's in charge of the Franciscans of the Renewal. And he was working with Mother Teresa where they take the starving off the streets. And he came over to her and she said, I want you to shave that man over there. She gave him a cup, a big razor and a bar of soap. He went over to this man and he said the only way I could describe it was like a bag of bones. And there out of the top of this bag of bones was this great big mop of hair and this great big bushy beard. And he said as he stood there he felt physically sick because the man was rotting. And at the end of shaving this man, it took him 2.5 hours. The man couldn't speak, but somewhere in the 2.5 hours, his hands touched his. And he looked into the man's eyes, and it was like him saying, I love you for what you're doing. And somewhere in that 2.5 hours, he realised the man had turned into Jesus Christ. And he went running over to Mother Teresa, and he said, I've just shaved the head of Jesus Christ. And Mother Teresa took his hand and said, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you visited me. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. Welcome until giving until it hurts. Because when you do this to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do it to me. Jesus' words. Every time we reach out and help someone, we help him. Every time we hurt someone, including ourselves, we hurt him. Finally, when we die, we're going to walk through to this greatest football stadium on earth, even bigger than Manchester United. And there in the terraces are going to be all the angels and saints who have gone before us. When someone like Mother Teresa walks through that tunnel, a cheer goes up that shakes the world we live in. Because when he was hungry, she did feed him. When he was naked, she did clothe him. When he was in prison, she visited him. When you walk through the tunnel, what's the response to be to what you've done with your life? See, I don't want to be a saint, someone who gets to heaven. I want to be a great saint and bring thousands of souls to God, because it's the only thing I found worth living for. Now, I used to be a gangster, and I used to live for money and power. Now I live for the greatest thing there is in this world, Jesus Christ. And he's there for you just as much as he's there to redeem me. So if you don't have meaning in your life, turn to Jesus, because he loves you and he created you, and you're not a mistake.